I mean, it's all about who he is. They were in article after article about his life experiences. It sounds a lot like somebody else we know. Mr. Hansy. Oh no, not Joe Biden. I'm talking about Beto O'Rourke. Who is Pete Buttigieg? What does he stand for? Name one policy that Pete Buttigieg supports. What does he care about? What policies? Not does he like dogs? I know he likes dogs. But what does he stand for as far as policy? What's he going to do for your grandmother? What's he going to do for my mom? What's he going to do for my father who can't quit his job, who's just about to retire, and we're worried about how we're going to afford his medication that keeps him alive? We're wondering that right now. What's Pete going to do about that? What's his policy to deal with that? Oh, I know he's gay. He likes guys. I don't care. I really don't care. Up to now, the selling point that Pete Buttigieg has is that he is honest about what I have no idea what. He would never cheat you in the game of blackjack, I suppose. That's what you mean. Well, anyway, I'm going to run a clip because there was a clip I saw on MSNBC where they were talking about Pete and polling. And you're going to love this.
You get a glimpse of it when you start registering in the polls, you start moving up a little bit, you can start to make some judgments about who it is who is attracted to a particular candidate. So we're starting to get a bit of a profile of who right now is behind this boomlet, if you want to call it that, on the Democratic side for Buttigieg. So one of the characteristics we're seeing is income. It seems among Democratic voters, the higher the income goes right now, the more interest there is in Buttigieg. Take a look at 3 recent polls here. Folks under 50K, this is how he's doing. Watch how these numbers go up as income level goes up. 50 to 100, his support jumps a little bit, then go to the highest group, 100K plus. Look what happens to his support. Suddenly he's there in double digits, mid double digits in one of the polls there. We're starting to see this consistently. Higher income Democratic voters right now seem to be gravitating toward Buttigieg. Another factor here, you talk about race. He seems to be doing better among white voters, among white Democrats than among black Democrats. Take a look at this. We got to go back a couple here, but here's 3 other recent polls, and you can see whites 8%, blacks 2%, 6%, 0%. This is a mistake. I'm sorry. This should say Emerson National. Forget that says Monmouth, Iowa, but the numbers are correct. Nationally in the Emerson poll, he's 13% with white voters, 2% with black voters. So you're also getting that characteristic. Other characteristics we're seeing that seem common to Buttigieg supporters right now, more liberal. Folks identifying themselves as liberal, as very liberal, some variation of that. That's where he seems to have the most energy. You go down toward the other end, moderate conservative. That seems to have the least energy for Buttigieg. And then also, as we say, highly politically engaged. Folks who are following this the most closely. There's a theory out here that part of this is very media driven. Well, folks who are consuming the most media may be the most enthusiastic about him as well.
All right. Well, Pete has led really with his personal story at this point. Right there, you saw him talk about kindness and love. We've heard a lot about humility. So is it easier at first blush for those voters who aren't struggling financially to say, I'm looking to vote for someone based on who they are? We haven't heard that much about policy yet. And if I am someone who is struggling in terms of wages or not knowing if I have my health care secured or if my kids don't go to a good enough school or I don't have health care provided, I might not know what Mayor Pete is offering. I know what Elizabeth Warren's offering.
Well, it's interesting, exactly how you want to explain it. There's different theories out there, but what we are seeing when I talk about these patterns is something we've seen before. This goes back through the modern era in Democratic politics. Not me, but somebody else coined the term. I think it's a very good one. You see traditionally these 2 types of tracks they talk about for Democratic candidates. Some they say the beer track and the wine track. And the wine track candidate typically is the one that it skews wealthier, it skews higher income, it skews more politically liberal, those sorts of things. Howard Dean, Paul Tsongas, Bill Bradley, Gary Hart. These are names from the past that put that sort of wine track coalition together. What you're seeing early on with Pete Buttigieg, it looks in a lot of ways, it's new in some ways, just in terms of what he is and who he represents. But in other ways, we've seen this coalition before. This has the makings of the traditional wine track coalition.
Well, President Trump would be the beer track. But at the same time, I listened to Bernie Sanders last night, and Bernie Sanders is the one and only person at this point, if you compare to Bernie Sanders or to a President Trump, who has that economic populist message. That's the message that won for President Trump, yet his policies have hooked up the elite of the elite.
Well, and let's see. I mean, I say
so he went beer to wine.
It's early, but again, I think the lesson when I say those names from the past, the lesson for Buttigieg, look, if you're the mayor of South Bend and you're getting numbers like this at all, that's gravy for you in some ways. But if you want to compete and win the nomination, you have to expand. You have to bring in black voters. You have to bring in voters with lower incomes than this.
Wine before beer. I don't know. Remember that. You're in the clear. Who knows? The question is, can you get both?
Who are the type of people that don't need to know what kind of policies that a candidate stands for? The type of person who's doing pretty well right now. See, if you're not worried about how your mom's going to be okay as she advances in age, how you're going to afford that medication, I guess I don't think you need to concern yourself with, I don't know, healthcare or pharmacy prices or what your candidate stands for in the way of healthcare. Because, you're good. This is the type of person that votes for Peter Buttigieg. This is the type of person that supports him. This is the type of person that donates to his campaign. This is the type of person that floods in my comment section trying to support this guy, talking about how great he is. How can it be great if you don't know what he stands for? How can it be great if you don't know what policies he stands for? So I love the fact that she made this point. It needs to be made. In fact, there's a level of classism in the Democratic Party that must be addressed. Now, I know some people, they point at they point over at the Republicans. They go, "Oh, these Republicans, these guys, these horrible guys." Well, how horrible is it that we have people in the Democratic Party who don't care about poverty, don't care about poor people struggling, don't care?
That's gravy for you in some ways, but if you want to compete and win the nomination, you have to expand. You have to bring in black voters. You have to bring in voters with lower incomes than this.
She pointed out that Bernie Sanders has their bread and butter type issues, the issues that working people that live paycheck to paycheck, or people who work for a living, frankly, who don't make over $100,000 a year might be concerned about. She pointed that that's the audience that Trump has. And he pointed out that seems like the audience that Bernie Sanders has as well. Just want to make note that Bernie Sanders had that audience in 2016. So it always goes back to the same thing, that the Democratic Party is willing. In fact, they are very happy and comfy to lose with a Pete Buttigieg than they are to win with a Bernie Sanders. If it means they have to change the way that they address wars, or the way that they address Wall Street or bank regulation or deregulation, or the way that they address all of these issues that really hamper the working class people. Pete's attracting the whites. He's attracting white folks. Only 2% of black folks are, and I saw 0 in a couple of those columns. At least one of them was 0 in it. If Bernie was polling at 0% black or 2% black, we'd never hear the end of it. Never hear the end of it. But let Pete Buttigieg be at 0 or 2% with black voters in silence. So what qualifies Pete to be a presidential candidate? Why is he polling at 8% with white folks that make over $100,000? Well, because he's the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He was elected when he was 29 years old. That made him the youngest mayor of a city with more than 100,000 residents, with just over 100,000 is where it really lies. He served in the U.S. Navy Reserve officer from 2009 to 2017. During 2014, he took a leave of absence while mayor to serve a 7th-month tour of duty in Afghanistan. Prior to holding office, the Harvard graduate did a summer internship with Senator Ted Kennedy of Massachusetts. Worked the campaign trail for Democrat John Kerry's 2004 presidential run, door knocked for Barack Obama 2008 presidential campaign, and became the research director for Democratic Jill Long Thompson's gubernatorial campaign in Indiana. Buttigieg also ran for state treasurer in 2010. So, just looking at this so far on Pete, he's an insider. Doesn't kind of jive with the whole, I'm folksy. I'm from a small Midwestern town. Midwest town. I'm an outsider guy. I'm down home. I'm a regular folks. Does it? Does it get any more inside than working with the Kennedys? I mean, that is the epitome of insider. Worked with John Kerry. Worked with Obama. But that's what the elitist group, elites want. They want that guy. They like that guy. Gives me all types of pause. After Buttigieg graduated from the University of Oxford with a coveted Rhodes Scholarship, he worked for 3 years at the consulting firm McKinsey & Company, focusing on energy and economic development. Just so you know, McKinsey & Company is the same organization that Chelsea Clinton worked for. Once again, very insiderish. He's a Harvard grad, a Rhodes Scholar who worked for Kerry, Obama, the Kennedys, and now and worked the same place that Chelsea Clinton worked. Yeah, he's going to attract a lot of blue-collar voters. But they don't know any of this about him, do they? Do you think people know any of it? No, they don't. They know he likes puppies, and he's got a great partner, and he thinks integrity is important, and being honest, and all of the all the things that a good Boy Scout should do to get a merit badge. That's what he knows. That's what he talks about on the campaign trail. And it appears to be good enough to get 8%, to be polling at 8% over people like Elizabeth Warren with a track record. Now, don't get me wrong. I've been critical of Elizabeth Warren, but come on, guys. Come on. She took a hit with the, with the whole Native American blood thing, but I think it's a slap in the face, frankly. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I got a lot of problems with Cory Booker, but Pete, he ain't even been on the stage long enough. How's Pete polling at 8? What's Cory Booker polling at? I see he had to restart his campaign.
In America, we have a common pain, but what we're lacking is a sense of common purpose.
Had to relaunch it because the first one fizzled out. It was a dud. The last launch didn't work. Failure to launch. Houston, we're not getting any air. Houston, pull the chute. What else about Pete? Buttigieg also ran for the DNC chair seat that Tom Perez ended up getting after they stole it from Keith Ellison. But he bowed out because he said he saw no way of winning. Pete realistically has no way of winning the nomination here either, but he won't bow out anytime soon because, well, how can you thwart Bernie Sanders if you don't let a guy like Pete run and take some of the vote? That way we got to go to the second ballot. To fund his DNC bid, Buttigieg created a political committee called Pete for DNC and raised more than $548,000 during the first 6 months of 2017. Wow, that's a lot of money for a small town mayor that no one ever heard of to raise. Don't you think? According to disclosures with the Internal Revenue Service, top contributors include philanthropist and sister Deborah Simon and Cynthia Simon, Carol Schwab, Pomerantz, Charles Schwab, Facebook Chief Product Officer. Oh, Facebook. $33,000 from Facebook guy. Facebook co-founder Chris Hughes. Oh, got a lot of Facebook money. All Buttigieg's PAC raised about $400,000 in a year. Wow. This is the article from The Guardian that talks about this. It says, this is Pete's selling point. This is how he closes the deal on a lot of voters. Listen to this. It's important. You guys want to learn how to sell snake oil to people who don't even have snakes. This is the tactic you want to use. Listen to this. He says, you have a handful of candidates from the middle of the country, but very few of them are young. You have a handful of young candidates, but very few of them are executives. We have a handful of executives, but none of them are veterans. And so it's a question of what alignment of attributes do you want to have? Can you say PSYOP? Still won't tell you what he supports, what he's about, what his policies are, what policies are making or breaking policies for him, what he'll do as president, just stuff that you should know about him. In fact, that's how they open this. Pete Buttigieg is the Democrats' flavor of the month. Just don't ask what he stands for. I spent enough time on Pete, I feel. But it's shameful that we have a candidate polling so high over other candidates who have actually have track records of getting things done or legislation that they support or policies, and we got this guy who just moseys in. But you know what it is? Pete is the poster child for what it means to get favorable media coverage. That's the reason why Pete's polling so high. The Guardian's put out several glowing pieces of cow manure on paper about Pete. Praising him for what? I don't know. Because he speaks languages. They might as well just play some theme music, some Barry Manilow music or something, and have him walk in with the lights dim. I mean, it's all about who he is. They were in article after article about his life experiences. It sounds a lot like somebody else we know. Mr. Hansy. Oh no, not Joe Biden. I'm talking about Beto O'Rourke. Where it's all about who they are, what they feel. It's all about what notes they can hit when they sing. Nothing about what they'll do for us. You would think a party that hated Donald Trump so badly would want to get a candidate that actually stood for something. Join the Tim Black community today right here on YouTube. You'll be glad you did. Peace.